A lot of these systems are edge AI based, which means that the AI is in the camera, and the cameras are communicating with each other with some kind of controller, and they're telling each other what to do. So that and it all happens so quickly that you don't notice it, like what you saw on the screen. That is an example of edge AI. So these cameras are not cheap. These are not $400 PTZ cameras. These are like $2,000 PTZ cameras. But they're worth it because the experience is so much better. You see where I'm going with this? Okay, so that solves half the problem. The other half of the problem is how do we solve the problem for the people in the room to treat the remote participants equal as the in-room participants? I challenge you that you need to redesign the way you're doing rooms. 10, 15 years ago, it was super expensive to fill the room with display technology like this. Now it's cheap. All these displays are a lot cheaper. The technology to drive all these displays is a lot cheaper. Fill the room with displays. So if you design rooms like this, you can bring in the remote participants on these monitors here. You want to know how to do that? There's about 10 different companies that have products that can actually do that. The newest one is called Calico from TV One, if you're interested. Like there's a lot of them that are out there. DVDO has a product out there where you can take all the content coming in and create one large digital canvas and chop it up, put it wherever you want it to go. So if someone is in, so the operator room just plugs in their HDMI or USB-C cable and their PowerPoint presentation just appears on the screen in the front. They don't have to worry about where the Zoom or the Teams participants appear because that's all handled through the digital canvassing product. So if I bring the remote participants on the sidewalls, then when they are speaking, they're in the same life-size proportions, like in high-flex classrooms. And I'll show you what that looks like. If I bring them in the sidewalls like that, I'm actually have a whole lot more display content space. I make the room more immersive, and I solve a problem for the remote participants. So here's a high-flex classroom. So in a high-flex classroom, we have the normal presentation space up in the front, but in the back, we have the remote participants in the same size proportions as the back, as the students sitting in the back of the room. Any new space is being built more immersive. And one thing that really helps what we do is building information modeling added AV as a layer. So the smart building industry added AV as we used to be low voltage, and we were part of everything else low voltage. Now we are a layer, AV. So what that allows us to do is whenever we do something, or whenever one of the other subs does something, we see the effect of it. So if someone moves an outlet from here to here, we know we can't put the chair mold here by moving it slightly down. So we get that information well before the space is built. So what's happening is any new construction is adopting a lot of this because we're having a hard time otherwise bringing people back. Marriott, as an example, is taking half of their meeting spaces over the course of the next 10 years and converting them into co-working spaces because they realize people aren't just going to have meetings anymore at the hotel. So they've got all these meeting spaces like ballroom spaces and convention spaces where they're booking out half of it, the other half is sitting empty all the time now because people just, if you can join a remote meeting instead of an in-person meeting, most of the time you are, unless you just hate your spouse. So therefore, they're going to take those and convert that into co-working spaces that are not just being used by the hotel people, but also being used by locals who come in and can use the spaces as well. And so the answer is yes. It's not just innovative universities. I mean, this is, if you Google high-flex learning spaces now, if you Google that in 2017, you'd find maybe 10. There was one school in Amsterdam that had done it, and I actually went over there and saw what they had done when we were designing our space. But now you Google high-flex learning, and you'll get thousands of results that are actual high-flex spaces. Everything from K through 12. And some of the other technologies driving this, stuff like esports, right? I mean, we haven't even talked about some of the niche markets that are sort of driving this kind of stuff. But yeah, on the corporate side, it's tougher. On the corporate side, everything is sort of like frozen, waiting to figure out how many people we're actually going to have in the office. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing 2 walls being taken off a lot of 4-walled spaces. So we're seeing a lot more open meeting spaces. That's hard to deal with, right? When you have an open meeting space, now we have the acoustical issues of an open meeting space. So we keep the same technology in there, but remove a wall. That makes it really tough. We have to re-engineer the space a little bit, especially acoustically. So we're seeing much more huddle spaces than enclosed meeting spaces. So that's gonna take a while in the corporate world because, as I said, there's a lot of people that just aren't going back. And this year, 2024, is the first year that we've sort of like had a baseline for, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And by the way, if you're interested in tracking this, there's a group called Castle that tracks this on a weekly basis, office occupancy. So you have Castle office occupancy. You can get a report. And right now we're hovering between 63 and 64% all the time. Now think about that, 63 to 64%. Before the pandemic, we were never below 90 to 95%, right? So, and by the way, 63, 64, that's the highest we've been since the pandemic. And it's been that way for about a year now. So now they have the realization, okay, this is the best we're going to do without taking the extreme of Amazon to say, if you want a job here, you have to come back. That's the alternative, right? Some companies can pull that off. Some companies, healthcare can pull that off, right? Some companies can pull that off, but a lot of software companies and hardware manufacturer and hardware sales companies, they're not going to pull out. People are going to go find other jobs. So, but yeah, if you just, and of course, if you reach out to me and you want, connecting with spaces, but I've consulted with a lot of companies to help them build better products that work into these spaces, and you're seeing the fruits of that now come out with some of these new products that are out there that handle digital canvassing much better than what we had before. And of course, remember, if you do AV over IP, you can do anything.